Good morning. I see that participants are starting to roll in for our entrepreneurship session. Thank you so much for joining us right before lunch. So hopefully this gets you excited to start your own entrepreneurial journey. Actually, I know it will, because we have three amazing entrepreneurs joining us today. So we have Maddie Wasink. I got it right. Maddie Wasink. She's the owner of Not Really Art. It's an art business in Niagara that specializes in custom string art pieces and DIY craft kits. She does work full-time at Brock University and as a social media and digital content coordinator for various departments. Welcome, Maddie. And we also have Evan Sittler, who is joining us today as well. He is one of the co-founders of Expert VR. So they help clients and partners push the boundaries of their business processes and how they're done and executed by using the right software and platforms to meet their needs. And Evan, I'm looking forward to you going into a bit more detail about that, because it's a bit probably out of my depth. So I'm really excited to hear a bit more. And last but not least, we have Andrews Moses, who is joining us today as well. He is the CEO and co-founder of Tenantcube. He has over 10 years of experience in working in SaaS industry, providing business solutions to companies around the world. I read his profile and I got really excited and kind of nervous at the same time, because he is one of the founding team members of Freshworks and has, after coming to Goodman School of Business, has decided to make Niagara his forever home. So welcome, Andrews. And my name is Adrienne Knight, and I will be your moderator today. So let's jump right into it, because we only have about 45 minutes. So I introduced your businesses really quickly, but I think that the three of you can do it a lot better justice than myself. So we would love to hear about your businesses and what inspired you to start. So Maddie, I'll start with you. So can you share a bit more details about your business and the inspiration for getting it started?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me, Adrienne. So as Adrienne mentioned, I run an art business here in Niagara, and it was kind of inspired just based off of, I'll give a little bit of background about my journey of how I got there. That's usually the best way to explain it. So I did work at Brock University as a student, and then I graduated, and I was kind of in that middle grounds of wondering what was my next step. It was a long journey, I would say, like, just because I think any go-getter, and I'm sure a lot of people are go-getters in this group right now, just entrepreneurial interests. So I was just wondering what my next steps were and feeling frustrated with myself, because I always had an answer for what my next step was. But in that moment, I really didn't. I knew that I wanted to get back to Brock and working there, but I was just waiting for that right opportunity for what that role would look like. Obviously, as you introduced, I am now working at Brock again. But in the meantime, I was just kind of honing into my interests of just my creative side during that time of unemployment after graduation. And that's when I just kind of I went on Pinterest and I was just searching around looking for some inspiration behind what I could do. And I tried out string art, and that's my piece behind me. It's certainly a very minimal piece that I started with. I'm happy to say that I've improved since doing that first piece. But I just kind of got into that, and I'm not going to fill my own house with my passion projects of art. I don't have the space to continue doing that. And I was like, well, maybe this is something to think about. And I kind of just left that. I didn't really think about it. I started working at Brock, and then I moved into my apartment, put this piece up. And as I had people over, they were just kind of making comments about it. And it just kind of I brushed it off. I was like, oh, it's not really art. That's where the name came from, partially, and also because the knots in the wood and the knots tying the string. So essentially the inspiration was just having that side hustle that I could have that would bring out my creative side. Talking about filling a cup, I have that piece of my life that's my full-time job. I love it so much. I love working in marketing and doing social media content creation, but I also love having that entrepreneurial journey on the side. So my inspiration is creativity and liking to bring people together through DIY projects and fun creative sides.
That's amazing. And I know for anyone on the other end who is maybe thinking about jumping into entrepreneurship, and I'll jump over to you, Evan and Andrews in a moment to talk about their story. at one point, sometimes when I've worked with entrepreneurs and startups, they're like, oh, but this is like you said, not really art. That piece of like, no, this is art. I can do this, and I am going to be an awesome entrepreneur. Do you think it took some time to come over that hurdle or that imposter syndrome that sometimes we feel when we're doing really awesome things?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tap on that a little bit later, but I definitely do feel like that's part of it. And it is that denial of like, well, this is just something that came easy to me. So it like, I think everyone thinks that things that they can do, other people can also do easily. And maybe there are people that can do it. I mean, like there's a lot of beautiful string artists out there creating great work. But I think it's just about recognizing the fact that no, like if you have a talent or you have a passion, hone into that and like don't try to push it away as something, oh, it's not a big deal. But yeah, it did take quite a bit of thought and a lot of talk with like friends and peers about this being a legitimate thing. And certainly that imposter syndrome, I don't think goes away. I think we always have that a little bit in the back of our heads, like even wondering, I'm looking at Evan and Andrews here and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, these like tech whizzes out here. And I'm doing art pieces and things, but like, I think it's like right away, just like kind of nipping that before you even think about like the negative sides of things and recognizing, you know what, everyone has their own talents and passions and it's important to hone into your own.
That's amazing. And Evan, I would love for you to build onto that conversation around the imposter syndrome, getting started, your inspiration. So Evan, take it away. And then Andrews, you're up next.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely still feel that imposter syndrome like almost every day. So even in like the tech business, I guess. Very similar. How we got started, I guess, Expert VR, it was about 5 years ago, was at Brock University, and was just really interested in entrepreneurship. I've always kind of been interested in starting like little businesses, and hadn't really done too much for a couple of years and went into the incubator, which I'll get into a little bit more later, but incubator there and met my co-founder, Drew McNeil, because he was the BioLink ambassador at Brock at the time. And at the time, I wanted to start a t-shirt business. And I walked in and Drew was already running a t-shirt business as the ambassador. And I was like, I can't do the same thing as the BioLink ambassador. So I picked up a 360-degree camera because I kind of liked video and was watching a lot of YouTube videos about 360. And just started shooting these 360 videos for fun, kind of, and doing free videos for people. And from there, started getting some contracts by just networking and talking to people, and were able to grow into a full VR company and now creating like VR simulations like the one behind me, with the amazing team we have. And I don't have any of the actual VR technical skills to do that. So it's been amazing, that journey. And I guess what originally inspired me and got me interested in entrepreneurship, I would say it would be my parents. On one hand, my parents were sort of entrepreneurial and doing all kinds of different side hustles as I was growing up. And then on the other hand, just seeing them in outside of those side hustles in jobs that they didn't really enjoy, and seeing that they weren't really getting enjoyment or like any financial incentive out of those jobs, and like how could I lead a different life into the future, and so a mix of those two things for my parents.
And I like that you mentioned that maybe, and this is from your experience too, Matt, that maybe you didn't have those maybe those skill sets right away, but you took time to learn that skill set and learn how to do it. And are you partnered off with someone that has those technical skill sets and capabilities? So that's where kind of partnering with someone you can really complement each other.
Oh, for sure. Like Drew and I, we both don't, and we'll be the first ones to admit that we both don't have those technical skills of how to use a Unity game engine to program things or how to 3D model. But we got interested in the 360 side, which we kind of learned about all the hardware side of things just by teaching ourselves. And then 2.5, 3 years in, we were able to get some funding from winning a pitch competition at Brock University. And that allowed us to hire our first employee for the summer. And now he's our CTO, Josh Igamino, and since then we've been able to build out a team of 11, and all of them have the technical skills that bring to life the things that we do. And we still don't have those technical skills, but it's amazing to have this team to do it.
And that's a great segue over to our other entrepreneur on the call today, who has 10 years in the SaaS industry. So Andrews, looking forward to hearing about your business story and inspiration.
Sure. Again, thanks, Adrian, for having me. Nice to meet you guys, Evan and Maddie as well. I was in tech. So I was in, like you said, over a decade of experience building software solutions. I actually wanted to get out of tech. So I started dabbling into renting properties. So that's where my first tenant in Canada was a armed robber and a drug dealer. So that kind of put me on a path of, you know what, geez, oh wow, like once you give the keys to your tenants, they have more rights than you. I thought it's a passive income, but it was a full-time business. And that's where I kind of started doing some research around, are there solutions that can help me kind of get over this? And I found the first smaller landlords, people didn't really care. They always cared about enterprise solutions out there. So for somebody who wanted to get out of tech, I found an opportunity or a problem that I thought, you know what, if everybody gets out of it, I had two options, right? Whether say, you know what, property management is not for me, get out of it, or use my experience to build something that I'm really passionate about, because real estate has been my passion. So I wanted to be in that industry. So I said, you know what, why not build a solution? Started building a team. Like Evan said, I'm not a coder. I'm a technical guy, but I'm not really a coder. Found the right partner who could help me build it. And now we are here, like Tenantcube's growing, and I'm super happy to be here. That's how we got started, from a personal experience, which was not the best, kind of converted that into an opportunity for a company. You're on mute, Adrian.
There we go. It's exciting hearing about all of your entrepreneurial journeys, because they all started in different ways. Maddie, you're making art, something for fun, and people said, I want this. And Evan, you started doing it too, and people are like, oh, I want this. And then you saw that opportunity in the market too, Andrew. You're like, okay, well, there's this obvious problem and there's this gap. So let me see how I can solve it. It's amazing over the past 4 years in the roles I've done, just people fall into entrepreneurship in various ways. And that message of, if you don't maybe particularly have those skill sets, finding a way to gaining them or partnering with people that do. So I guess we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but for those wanting to become entrepreneurs, what are some words of advice that you have for them before they get started? So Andrews, I'll start off with you for this one.
Sure. So one thing I always ask yourself why you're doing it, right? More than what you're going to get out of it. So you start off with, why do I really want to build this, right? In my case, it was that, you know what, if I don't do it, then there's landlords, a lot of other landlords are going to have similar problems, lose money. So I said, you know what, if I have the ability to do it, I should do it. And if I can save a couple of other landlords from a situation like what I was part of, that'll make my day, right? Which we didn't want to build a massive company. It was not about making money. It was just about, can I save 10 other landlords like me? Can I create that impact using our platform, right? And that's the reason we started. And that's how, and that's one thing I always tell people who talk to me about, is like, why do you want to do this? Ask yourself, like, is this something that I'm really passionate about? The why should be more important than what you get out of it. So as you can see, both other entrepreneurs they're doing it because they loved it. They want to do it. They had some kind of why they want to build it, right? That's how it'll lead you to success. If you just do it for the what, you will give up after a couple of failures. So that's kind of what I would say. Start with the why, kind of dive deep into the why, and then you'll be in the right track.
We're getting some great comments in the chat. Anne said, very good reflection, why you do it, not what you're going to get out of it. Thank you, Andrews. So a quick comment there I wanted to share with you. Evan, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Andrews there. Like, finding your passion and following that is definitely number one. I guess advice after that, and once you have found your passion, what I like to give, 2 words, kind of flexible patience. So first of all, on the patience side of things, myself and Drew, we've been doing this for 5 years now, and know many other entrepreneurs that have taken longer or just taken a few years. But either way, it's going to take time to like get to your goals and hit those goals and then continue on. So being patient and first having that passion so that you can be patient. And then I say flexible patience because something that we've done so many times is pivoting and finding a new way to still stay in the virtual reality space, because that's what we love and what we want to do, but knowing how the market's changing or what our skills are at the time and knowing how to pivot there, just always being flexible there so that you can follow the paths that make sense and not just be too hard-headed and going down one path.
I am stealing that phrase. Sorry, flexible patience? Is that
Yeah,
what you
I actually kind of came up with it
That
on
is
the or like just before this call, but yeah. Yeah.
That's like, it really does take time and just being able to shift and maneuver the market pretty readily. Though that is fantastic. I'm stealing that. Thank you. I'm going to R&D that. And Maddie, over to you.
Yeah, echoing what both of them said as well. Obviously, honing into a passion is important, because I think without having a passion behind a business, like it becomes like a monotonous task. I think if you don't have that passion and there's not like a level of enjoying what you're doing, I like not saying that every single moment of an entrepreneurial journey is like, oh, this is so fun. Obviously, there's some hiccups along the way. There's moments of like, what is going on? Like, I did not expect like this aspect of the business or this. I think like what comes to mind for me is like the financial aspect of thinking like, oh, like when tax season comes around, like that's not my favorite thing, but I enjoy all the parts in between. But I also would say, like, I like to speak to people that are not necessarily looking to have it as like a full-time journey necessarily. I'm personally on a side hustle. I think I mentioned that earlier. So like I would give the advice of like, you don't have to like quit your day job to go into what you're passionate about. Certainly if that's what you feel like you're being called to do, and go and do that. But my personal journey, like I said, I really enjoy my full-time job, and I started this on the side. So I think that like some might say like, oh, that's like the safe way to do it. But I also think that there's also like a level of safety that, like, I mean, we have bills to pay. So like, if you're not ready to take that jump and go into something full time, starting as a side hustle is a great way to start. I think you'll find that that's like a good way to kind of like skip into that journey and then see where it takes you.
And that really resonates. I have a little side hustle that I've started recently along with my work too. And it's really great that you can still do what you enjoy doing while still having that income coming in. It definitely decreases your risk, because at the end of the day, you have bills to pay, food to put on your table, and roofs to put over your head. So kind of talking about taxes and money and jumping in some of those things, what would be some of those first steps that people should consider and do when they're thinking about starting a small business? So Evan, I'll jump over to you for this one to start us.
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing is making sure that you have found something you're passionate about, going back to what Andrew said. And then from there, I think it's just about networking, connecting with people that are doing similar things, connecting with the different incubators, accelerators, business enterprise centers, and things along those lines that can help you get over those hurdles that are going to happen. There's so many people that have walked these paths before you, even if it's not the same path. Like, we have a mentor that we go to that worked at Sears almost a majority of his life, and then started a business, and it's in like a consulting of like a business coaching kind of thing, not at all related to what we do, but we meet with him monthly and he gives us great advice every time. So finding those people and finding those organizations that can help you, I think, is number one.
And we'll jump to talk about maybe some of those specific organizations soon too. So I'm really glad that you mentioned them. And Maddie, what are some of the first few steps that you would encourage people to take?
Yeah, so I think we're going to be echoing each other quite a bit, because I think we all will find similar journeys in some way that tie together. But echoing that, like doing your research, making sure that you make those connections. Networking is super important, because whether that's networking to get those people in the room with you that know how to have those skills that you don't necessarily have, or even like for myself personally, like networking is also just like finding ways to, like, I do workshops at like wineries and things like that. So having those connections, like personal connections, just to be able to get into those places and get my name out there and my business name out there a little bit more. But like, I think the first thing that I personally hopped into is just doing a bit of research about how businesses work. Like, I think there's something to be said about just searching on Google and looking like kind of the things that like maybe like a blog post about like what to expect when starting a small business, or I don't know, like things to be ready for in tax season, or just things like if you can get ahead of those things rather than having them come up and be like, oh my goodness, like I didn't save my receipts for my expenses, or oh my goodness, like I didn't know that I needed to like have, I don't know, X thing to do for shipping my products or things like that. I think it's just, if you can avoid having those come up as surprises, I think that that is a huge win as you go through your entrepreneurial journey as well. So doing your due diligence, researching, certainly having those connections to ask questions to small businesses, but also I'm always like an advocate for being respectful too of doing your own research, and then from there creating questions to ask people, because taking that time to do your own research is super important as well, because I think we all did that ourselves as well.
And Andrews, that was great. Thank you, Maddie. That research piece and due diligence. So thank you for adding that on to Evan's comments too. And Andrews, do you have comments to echo or and to add on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think both great points. Like one, obviously you need a mentor, somebody, because Evan mentioned, right? They walk different paths. Every entrepreneur is different, but then there are some areas that you can learn from anyone, right? So I take it as an opportunity to every day, every meeting, is there an opportunity I can learn something from someone, right? Might not be an entrepreneur. It could be somebody who's working with you, right? Somebody who's just you chatting off the blue, right? One thing I kind of wanted to one other area that I did obviously research, but one thing I recommend doing is research more about the problem than your solution, right? Like spend more time. Is it a real problem? Is this actually a valuable problem? Is that a real problem that I can solve in the world? So spend some time on the problem before you get into the solution and research about it and kind of look at how big it can get and all that, right? If just see if that's a problem you want to solve, because you're going to spend the next 10 to 15 years of your life trying to solve that problem. So spend some time on the problem before you get started. So that's one thing I want to add there.
This is I'm really enjoying the conversation today. Thank you. And we have a really great group on the call. You saw that Savannah put in the chat that if you have questions, please put them in there. So please do so, because I'm keeping an eye on them and I will present them to our entrepreneurs as well. So we touched a little bit on some of the local support networks for businesses and for entrepreneurs. It's my understanding, I believe that all of you probably engaged at one point in time or are still engaging with some of these. So Andrews, I'd like to start with you. What support networks locally did you find beneficial for you?
Innovate Niagara has been one great help for us. I mean, as Maddie said, research side, like we didn't have the resources to tap into. I was not at Brock at that time, so I didn't have the resources that Brock could offer me. So I was using Innovate Niagara with their partnership with Mars. And one great thing, I think Evan and I talked to the same kind of mentor. We actually, Evan and I met through him. We went to an event in Toronto to just kind of listen to pitches and stuff. So those are things that you just did. Like I mean, even though we are not really a big tech hub here, I feel like there are a lot of different organizations and entrepreneurs like Evan and all the other people are willing to help and kind of share their learning. So which I feel is we've kind of honored and pleasure. It's a pleasure to be based in the region where there is a lot of support, and obviously with the region as well, we have some mentors. I always talk about different opportunities and everything around. So Innovate Niagara, a couple of mentors that Evan pointed out too, and there's quite a few. I'm a part of an angel network as well. So I was been an angel investor, or I am still an angel investor. So that's another network that I tap into. There's something called Niagara Angel Network that I'm a part of, and I get amazing feedback and great insights from there as well.
And yourself, Maddie. Thank you, Andrews.
Yeah, so I have a couple. One is a little bit less of a formal, I guess, setup. I was going to say, just because I'm big into social media, obviously, a big part of my like support and services is just tapping into that small business community through Instagram, actually. So it's maybe less of a like conventional kind of thing because it's so much out there and you can find so many people doing small businesses, but specifically tapping into like I tend to go towards like women in business, people doing side hustles, things like that. So I do have like a group chat with a group of women that are also in small businesses. We actually just met for the first time on Zoom calls, and it's just kind of being able to bounce ideas and ask questions to each other. So just that's something to do. Like that's a little bit like less formal, I guess, that I would encourage people to do. Kind of find your people and have those people that you know that you can ask questions to, and you never feel like it's like a dumb question or anything like that. It's kind of a safe space. But on the more like formal side of things, there's a group called Females Who Side Hustle. They have a podcast. So that's kind of how I found out about them, called Save Her Seat. Check it out. It's very good for any women in business. But I also think like just anyone in business, they have some great insight to their journeys in entrepreneurship. But they also have a network for business, women in business around all over the world, I guess. I think it's largely the West Coast in Niagara right now, but it's a great community of support. We're able to post in our Facebook group, and that's like a paid membership for that piece. But there's also the Instagram community as well that anyone can kind of join, just again through social media and being able to connect with fellow women in business, specifically in their side hustles. And there are some people that are doing their full-time gigs as well. Just a great support network. I think like they tap into that a lot as well. Like entrepreneurship can feel very lonely if you don't have people around you that have similar circumstances. I don't think that like you can convey like what you're going through when you get like frustrated about something. People oftentimes are just like, well, then why are you doing it? Like specifically, I find that because they're like, well, you have a full-time job. Like you don't need to do that. Like, why are you stressing yourself out? Then it's like, right. But like, I'm not saying that because I want to quit. I'm saying that just because like I'm venting a little bit, but like, I think it's just important to have those people that can like have your back and say, this is why we're doing it. Here's some answers that I have found. And just overall, like just that support system is so key.
We have a couple of questions hopping in the chat. So for those who did leave questions, I'm going to hop over to Evan to respond to that. Then I'm going to check out some of the questions are along the sidebar. But I working with startups and new startups for quite a few years, a lot have resonated with those comments, Maddie, that you really just need to find other entrepreneurs that you can connect with, either to help you stay accountable to your goals and for that support. So I really appreciate that you mentioned a couple of those. And if you have the opportunity, Maddie, can you type in the chat that Facebook group? Thank you so much. Evan, over to you. Yeah,
like I think just echoing what Andrews and Maddie both said, like finding those groups that you can relate with, definitely even doing it full time and not as a side hustle for the first 3 years myself, like got that same type of feedback as Maddie was saying from parents and friends, and like, well, why are you doing this? You're about to graduate or you have graduated. Like, why don't you just go and get a job in the business field with the degree you have? And then beyond that, like the specific organizations, I would say like go to all of them. Drew and I have been to every single one, whether it's Innovate, GNCC, Next Niagara, Spark, BioLink, which is now Venture Group, like all of them in Niagara, we've gotten connected with and go to their different events and everything. So as many as you can find. And then obviously once you go to all of them, you might find ones that don't really fit what you're doing and you'll start going to those ones less or whatever it is. But yeah, reaching out to all of them. And then I saw one of the questions that came in was like, how do you find a mentor? And one of those things, I think going back to what Maddie was saying, very important just to go and network. And like, I would say I'm usually a pretty shy guy or introverted person, so I'm not like great at networking events, and it's something I've worked on a lot over the past few years. But going there and at least making sure that you talk to like one or two people and just have one or two meaningful conversations, and then leave if you're pretty shy or introverted. And going to those regularly, you're going to start to find people that are mentors. If you're looking for a mentor specifically, maybe try and find somebody that's a little bit older to have a conversation with that looks like they may have some more experience, or research some people if you can see like a list of who's going, things along those lines. And then just reaching out to people on, like Maddie was saying, on Instagram, or I use LinkedIn a lot, going there and just reaching out to people. So many people are willing to connect and have conversations and help out. Yeah.
I can echo that too, Evan. Just there are so many people who have decades of experience that want to pass that knowledge on to the next generation of everyone that's on the calls and engaging this conference today. I have done it myself recently and have connected with 3 incredible minds over the past couple of weeks. So do it. That's the challenge for everyone leaving here today, is find someone in your field that you want to get into, message them somehow and connect and have a conversation. So we have a couple of questions we're going to go through, but I wanted to hop over to some of the questions in the chat. So on mentoring, maybe we'll jump to the next one since you had a chance to answer that one. What is your biggest piece of advice for someone who's already at 100% but wants to make it 1,000 times better? So for the person on the call, do you mean that you've already started your business, you're working in your business, you've perfected it, and now you want to take it to the next level? Just for clarity, is that what this question is referring to? We'll give the entrepreneurs / mentors today, all of you are definitely our mentors today as well, an opportunity to digest that one. I don't, correct. Okay, so that's what they mean by that. Okay, and this is freestyle, so whoever wants to jump in to talk to that question, that'd be great.
Sure. I mean, I can take a stab at it. I'm not an expert, or I've not done this multiple times. But one thing I would say is, I mean, if you know you're getting to 100%, and if you want to grow the business, I think now your network has to grow outside of your scope, right? So like we said, we never stop adding network or finding different ways to grow the business. So starting is totally different than scaling your business. So when you start, you need different set of mentors. And when you have to scale the business, your team needs to be different and your mentors need to be different. So always looking ahead a year or two, kind of plan, because right now, like launching is one thing for us. Now we're at a stage where we need to scale. So now we're looking to hire the people who have done that in the past. So I would say, I would never, I mean, obviously, I would never say that we have, as an entrepreneur, I don't think we can ever say that we have done what we need to do. We always have that extra that we need to do, right? So we always look at what's next and always keep looking at the next step. I would say don't look at 1,000. From 100, look at 500 or 200. And once you get to 200, look at 500 and then get into 1,000. So just as long as you're growing every month, every quarter, it will get you to 1,000, right? So that's one piece that I can give, is like having long-term goal is great, but I think start executing on a month by month or a quarterly basis.
Thank you, Andrew. That's fantastic feedback. Quite a few questions are coming in the chat right now too. This is great. One was for Evan in particular, but Andrews, you might be able to connect on this. I won't read the full question, but in essence, it's when you're going to make those hires, how do you, because I lost the question somewhere in the chat. When you're going to make those hires, how do you know the timing is right in finding the right people to be part of your team? The question kind of went away, but that.
Yeah, I don't know, from my experience, it's you'll never really know for sure. I think you kind of have to, when you're hiring somebody and you're giving them like a 1 year or a full-time contract, I think the first thing is knowing that you have money coming in to be able to pay them for that time period, or at least knowing that you're pretty close. I've had to have some tough conversations with some of our first employees once or twice where we're like, yeah, we're not going to make payroll this week. We know the money's coming in, but it will be coming in next week, and there was something delayed or something that happened. So kind of knowing that money's coming is a big portion. I think another thing that we did a lot was starting by hiring co-op students or interns or just students that are coming in for the summer or for a shorter term. So you can kind of like start to dip your toes in the water per se in hiring. And it's like, okay, I'm not offering a full-time contract and you're not at like a full-time salary. You're just at this hourly wage. And with that, with co-op students, there's so many grants available that can help fund a large majority of their co-op. So that's been really helpful as we were growing. And I think I also saw something in there about like the pitch competition. So I guess just to give a quick background on that, we did monster pitch at Brock University. I think almost every university has similar pitch competitions, and there's all kinds of other ones in the community. And through that, we were able to get a bunch of in-kind services, so some like marketing help, some legal help, some accounting help. But then we got, I think it was $6,000 in cash. So just through winning that, we're like, okay, all of that money is going into hiring this person, Josh Gamino, our CTO, for the summer, and he's going to be our first hire, and we're going to do work and impress people, and hopefully we can hire him on in September after that. And it all worked out. So.
And now you have a team of 11.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Another question that came up, there's only a couple of questions left that we had in this chat, but I think there's some really great questions coming in. So thank you for everyone that's putting this out there. How do you market your business to increase awareness about your product? Maddie, you are the social media and marketing expert on the call today. So maybe I'll throw this one at you.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a fun question anyways. I think that it's important when talking about, like, I can speak to social media specifically because that is where like my expertise lies in social media marketing. So I think it's about, well, I know it's about finding which platform works for your business. I think there's a lot of advice out there that's very, what I would say like is generic, saying like, oh, you should be on Instagram. That's where this group of people are. But I think it's more about knowing your business and knowing who your clientele is or customers are than anything. Like I definitely recommend not listening to generic information from people like, oh, you need to post at this time. You need to like create YouTube videos every week and things like that. If you just show up where your clients are and your customers are, and you give solid content about like behind the scenes of your business and showing like, I think a lot of like the trends are showing just how people like to see that human to human connection behind businesses. I think obviously like we all shop from like big box stores and stuff when we need to and things like that, but there's something to be said about people having those connections to people within their community. And I think that shows today with all these people showing up for a Niagara conference, right? Like people care about their communities, and that also pertains to businesses as well, making sure that you show the face behind your business, show how you're partnering with other businesses in your community and things like that, showing up to things like this, not being afraid to sign up for a conference where you're talking about your business skills and background and things like that. So marketing your business is just like, kind of to sum that up, it's important to just show off all the ins and outs of your business. Don't be shy to show your failures, your successes, and make sure you get some nice product photos. That is very important as well. No one wants to see a blurry, like, I don't know, like Samsung, like old, like flip phone photo of your product if you're product based, or even if you're service based, like get some nice headshots of yourself. Make sure you're having those like that quality content to show that you're a legit business. You want to be taken seriously.
There is a question for Andrews in here too, but I wanted to kind of, what you said there about getting out there and connecting with people. What do you think, I want to touch on this one about failure before, I know we at 12 o'clock around there we end and we have about 6 minutes to go, but I wanted to touch on this because as humans, we don't really like to fail, like, but it happens and it's okay. You learn from it. So I would like to hear from all of you, and I know everyone on the call would as well, because this next question does relate to that. Is what would you say is the hardest part of starting a small business? And do you have strategies for overcoming those challenges? So I think that plays into that failure piece. And shout out to Tyler Snoor. He published his own novel at, he was writing it between 15 and 16, I believe, Tyler, and launched it when he was 16, 17. So he has his own novel. Shout out to Tyler, sorry. But yeah, I would love to hear from you a bit about that question, but also I think plays into the failure piece. So Andrews, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great tough question to answer in such a short time, but I'll try. So I mean, the first hardest part is obviously, I mean, it depends on what you do, right? In the sense that to convince somebody that traditionally we call it the opportunity cost, if you will, right? So getting paid, you have an amazing job, you want to quit that, and then there is I mean, in my case, right? Obviously, Maddie's doing it in a different strategy. Everyone has their own strategies. So the opportunity cost and kind of thinking, is this the right thing, right? There's always that fear in your mind that, am I doing it right, or am I able to do it? No, it's not about just failure. Like once you fail in a small thing, it shouldn't affect you in that, you know what, maybe I'm not the right person to do this, right? There will always be failures. We should just take failures as I think I call it, it's a part of our business plan, that we fail, we learn, we move on. Like Evan said, we pivot, right? If we have done a lot of, if you think something's not working, you pivot. So don't think of failures as something that you'll never have to adhere as an entrepreneur. You do it all the time. Or actually, a lot of good entrepreneurs fail fast and they learn and they move fast, right? So that's one thing, that make it a part when you start. Just tell yourself that, yeah, you're going to fail 200 times, but you just got to be successful 3 times to be, or be successful 3 times, or good at it 3 times, and then you'll make it, right? So add it to a part of your routine that, yeah, I'm going to fail, I'll learn from it, and I'll move on.
Awesome message. Thank you for that, Andrews. Evan and Maddie, do you have some additional comments to add to that failure piece and overcoming challenges? And Evan, I'll start with you if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. I think first of all, to answer like what's the hardest part of starting a business, I think it's really starting a business. All the failures that come afterwards, you just kind of start rolling through them, and I don't know, I almost like failures now. It's like Andrew said, you're learning from them and you're moving forward. And if we didn't have some of the failures we had, we wouldn't be where we are today. So you keep learning from them and going forward. So I think the hardest part is really getting started. And it's going to hurt sometimes. Like I made a LinkedIn post this morning about how our first contract I think we got paid around like $10,000 to shoot some videos for Niagara Falls tourism. And then like a couple months after, we found out that the next lowest bid was 60,000. So we're like, we could have come in anywhere between there and probably got the contract still. So you're going to get all those monetary ones that really sting. And then there's going to be all kinds of other things, failures that sting. But yeah, going back to my first piece of advice, flexible patience. You just got to be patient and know that you're going to fail and you're going to keep moving through it, and just keep being flexible with it.
The piece that you mentioned of only charging 10 and you could have charged 60. I've seen it happen a lot where entrepreneurs, it's at that confidence piece, and you're thinking that other people could do this too. It's really not that special, that you start to, you undervalue yourself at the start too. So I think that's kind of when you're starting, that's the piece you really start to learn quickly. It's like, no, I'm really awesome and I'm providing value, so I should be charging. I could charge more. Maddie, over to you.
Evan, I like this when you said that, because that hits so close to home, because I think we undervalue our services, our products, like just us overall as entrepreneurs to start. When you said 10K, I was like, that's interesting. Like, cause I know, like I'm in Brock, so I know about your business and things like that. And I'm like, for like a big thing like that, like, oh my God, I figured it was going to be much higher than that. But I do think, yeah, pricing is a failure at the beginning, and also a very difficult part of small business, because we tend to undervalue ourselves. I mean, like, I've charged people for pieces like at the start, like I was like, oh, like, yeah, sure, like $20 for that. And I spent hours and hours like designing the piece, like cutting the wood, like doing all like the woodworking aspect of it, creating the piece, bringing it to their house, like. And I just like, you look back and you're like, I was not making money by doing that. And that is not the goal of having a business. Like, just because you're passionate and love doing something doesn't mean you can't make money from it. And I think that your customers and the people that you want surrounded in your community from that will understand that and be happy about that. And the people that don't understand that, like, you don't really want them in your corner anyways. And I was also going to say, from a product-based business, shipping is a very difficult thing. I think that a lot of people come in contact with, because once you start maybe like selling locally and things like that, like you're just delivering things locally, people are picking up from the local area. But then when you want to scale a little bit, and I sell my DIY kits across North America now, and I was like, I have not been to the post office since I was a child, sending like my OMA letters or something like that. And I'm just like, that is not something that was familiar territory. And I think with being an online world, that's something that a lot of people will deal with. But I would say, again, doing research about that and just finding out what's best for you. And I also think that's like an ongoing journey. I'm still learning the ins and outs of shipping as well. But yeah, I think that those two pieces are very difficult in business. Knowing that you can charge at just like a proper amount to make money, and also shipping your products is two difficult things. And failures are inevitable. Like these two guys said, like it's It's part of the plan. You just have to know that, but that doesn't mean that you will not have breakdowns along the way. And that is totally okay. Just get back up afterwards and maybe take the day, be upset about it. That's totally cool. Where passion is, there's going to be emotions. So it is totally cool to have a little bit of a meltdown that day and then keep going.
Thank you, Maddie, Evan, Andrews. We are at 12:01, so it is time to wrap up. But I want to give everyone a moment just to give just a 5-second wrap up of the final words of advice. And for those on the call right now, after this, grab your lunch and hop over to the main stage because Oddbird and Oddbar, Justin and Scott are doing a cooking demo. Their food is absolutely delicious. So rapid 5-second, really quick wrap up of your last piece of advice to give everybody. So Evan, go for it.
Yeah, really quickly, being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster. You're going to have ups and downs. So just keep going through it and connect with people. And on that note, I'm always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn or set up Zoom meetings like this. So feel free to reach out, anybody.
Awesome. Andrews.
I would say, like I said earlier, start with a why, but start. Right? Don't overanalyze it. Start somewhere. You will figure it out. So you don't need to have all the answers before you start. Start, then be curious. You'll get there.
Maddie.
Yeah, just last piece of advice is learn how to market your business. I think it's so important to recognize that you can have an amazing thing, but if you're not telling people about it, they're not going to know about it. So make sure you connect with people, get the word out through websites, social media, all those good things. And if anyone ever has any questions for products, hand making products, all those kind of things, I'm on Instagram. So you can find me at NotReallyArt with a K, or like Evan said, I'm on LinkedIn as well. And that's one of my favorite platforms too. So feel free to connect with me on there.
Thank you. And thank you, Savannah, for taking care of everything on the back end. And for those who joined us, have a wonderful afternoon and hop over to the main stage.